I'm sure this is a problem that is well known to many of you. You had the initial struggle of connecting your GPS to OMN. Then you got a new GPS, you had a problem getting that connected, or you changed your computer and suddenly your GPS wouldn't connect. I've had 15 years experience connecting GPS units to PCs, and a lot of that time has been trying to connect to the Anquet applications through version 1, version 6 and now OMN. So here's the benefit of that experience. This specifically relates to the Garmin family of GPS units. From the original ones with the round serial connection, which then went on to the flat 4-pin, then to the mini USB, and now the latest sophisticated devices. Over the years, Garmin have made some changes to the way they communicate with a GPS unit, and it's posed a few problems, shall we say. Unit works, you get a new model, and suddenly there's something different about it. I know that eventually Anquet more or less gave up on trying to keep track with Garmin and opted with OMN to use GPS Babel to handle serial communications. This is a pretty good package, well maintained, and it's been found that as Garmin made changes, this package was updated so that the communication kept working. Basically now there are two types of communication with the GPS unit. There's the old, shall we say, serial method. Garmin had their own protocol for transferring data back and forward between a PC and the GPS device. This was handled over serial communications, the standard serial port, although later on they did introduce a straight USB connection with a mini USB on the other end. But basically, despite the physics of the connection, it still relied on the serial protocol that had been going for years. But latterly things have changed. Devices with more storage, and I suppose the advent of the GPX standard, meant that Garmin switched to having their devices appear as an external disk drive, basically a mass storage device. So with a modern GPS unit, when you plug it in, it appears as an external drive, like a USB stick or a big drive you plug in for backup, and that has a completely different way of communicating with it. Here we have a range of GPS units. From left to right, you have a Garmin GPS 60, pretty old device, still works. It had the round 4-pin connection, or it has the round 4-pin connection. An Etrex Summit, again fairly old device. It has the flat 4-pin connection. Both of these two are very obviously serial connection. They plug into the serial port on your PC, or possibly, if you can get hold of the cable, and I know they exist for the flat 4-pin, a straight 4-pin to USB connection. But whichever you use, it's the serial protocol. This is a Legend, more modern but still pretty old. It has a mini USB connector and a current Etrex 10. Again, it has a mini USB connector. There are later devices, more sophisticated, more features, but I've never found the need for one, so I've stopped at the Etrex 10. This is the back of the two serial devices. GPS 60 with the round 4-pin connection, and the Summit with the flat 4-pin connection. If I start with the two serial devices, that's the GPS 60 and the Summit, unfortunately I don't have an example of the 4-pin connector. I did have, but I got rid of that GPS a long time ago and got rid of the cable as well. But this is the 4-pin connector, and as I said, it's serial, so it ends up in a DB9 plug, which originally was no problem, just plugged into the back of your PC. However, modern PCs often don't have a DB9 socket, especially laptops, and as far as I'm aware most desktops now don't come with one unless you're prepared to put an extra bit of hardware in to connect up. So what you need is an adapter, USB one end, DB9 the other. One problem with these, they have a chip inside them to handle the conversion, and you require a driver to support it. This is the one that I got a long time ago, worked for years until Windows 8 came along. I'd been able to find a driver for Windows 7, but when I upgraded to Windows 8 it just stopped working, and I know a few people have had the same problem. Once I realised what the problem was, solution was easy: go and buy a new adapter cable, which is what I had to do, and this is the one I got. I'll make sure I include details of it in the description in case anybody finds they need one of these. As I said earlier, you can now get cables that are straight through, USB one end, flat 4-pin the other. I'm not sure if anybody ever made the round 4-pin to USB, but I know these exist. I'm not sure if the drivers work, because obviously they must have something similar inside the cable to convert it to USB from serial, but try it. This is the other cable, mini USB on the end, USB that end, and this is for later devices, whether they use the Garmin protocol or a mass storage, to use the same cable. So you've got your GPS unit and you've got the cable to connect it to the computer. Now the question is, how do you set up communication between the computer and the GPS unit? For these two, at least the decision's made for you. Their serial protocol, no doubt about it, because of the connection you know what it is, so you've just got to worry about getting that set up. For the eTrex Legend and the eTrex 10, both use the same connection, so there may be some doubt as to whether it's a mass storage device or using the Garmin serial protocol. The way to do it is just connect the device up and find out what happens when you attach it to the computer. So I'll take you through that process now. So now we'll have a look at the eTrex Legend. This has a mini USB connection on the back, but it's a fairly old device, so it may not be mass storage, it possibly would be serial protocol. And the way to find out is just to connect it up and wait and see what happens. It's powered up, so I'm waiting to see if it's detected as a mass storage device. I have Windows File Explorer open and nothing's happening. It's not showing up as an external drive, so I'm assuming it's not a mass storage device. you'll hear the bleep as I connect and disconnect the device. So it's not appearing as an external drive. So if I open up the control panel and go to devices and printers, give it a minute to populate. And I have a list of all my devices, and if I look down at the bottom in the unspecified category, Garmin USB GPS, so it's been detected as being a Garmin device, but it's using the USB connection as opposed to mass storage. Now we look at checking out the eTrex 10. Unfortunately, I'm not able to capture the eTrex 10 screens. So what I've done is taken some photographs of what happens. This is the settings menu, settings, system, in USB mode. I've got it set to mass storage. It is possible to set it to Garmin, and when I first got the device I tried out the Garmin protocol and it worked. But I've had a firmware upgrade since then and it no longer works. So the only method that seems to work on this is mass storage. Don't know about other devices, but I'd suggest if you have a new device that supports mass storage, then select it. The other two screens I'll tell you now, because you won't see them as it happens. When you connect the device, you'll get this message saying that it's saving the current data into a GPX format file, and once that completes you're left with this screen, and this is basically indicating that your device is connected to a computer in USB mode and is behaving as a mass storage device. So how do you check it's actually a mass storage device and connected to the computer? Easy. If it turned on, you just connect it to the computer. You get that message I showed you saying it's saving the data, and then it pops up with that screen. It says it's a mass storage device, that it's connected to the computer via USB. And eventually you'll get the usual Windows message. I've detected a new device, what do I do with it? I've got two screens. It popped up on the other screen, but here you can now see that the Garmin device is being reported as drive J, an external disk drive. It's appearing as J just now. For you it may appear as something different depending on how many drives you have in your system and how they're configured. And also there's no guarantee it will always be J or the same letter, because if you connect other devices or you change the port it's plugged into, the drive letter may change. But looking at your drives will always tell you where it's connected. May come in handy. At this stage, let's have a look inside the device itself and see what it's showing. These lost directories are system created things. Ignore them. The one you want is Garmin. So if you have a look inside, you see there's some files. Again, these are Garmin. And there's various files, various folders. The one we're interested in is the one that says GPX, because that's where any GPX files are placed, either from the PC or internally by the unit. If it creates any GPX files, it puts them there so you can find them. and if you transfer data, you should put it into the GPX folder so the device knows where to look. I should mention this folder current. Remember when you connected the device, it showed you that it was saving the data. This is where it's saved, and in there is a file called current.gpx, and that's a snapshot of what was in the device when you connected it. It saved it all, put it in there, so if you want to get hold of that data, you can. But basically, it's the GPX folder you want. That's where you look for any files that are created on the unit. If you're sending data, make sure you put them there so it'll be detected. Right, so let's look at setting up communication with your device. In this case, I have the eTrex 10 connected, which is a mass storage device. So let's go into Settings, Options, GPS, and make the connection for a USB disk device, which is what the eTrex is appearing as. So I select that, and it just so happens that of course I've been using it, so it shows the folder there. But to show what happens, click on Change, offer the chance to browse the folders, find your device drive J, into Garmin, and there's the GPX folder, and that's where you've got to put your data. So OK, Apply, OK, and now you're ready to transfer data to and from your GPS unit. To send data to the GPS, straightforward. I've already got the settings done, so if I go into user data, I've prepared a route. Just open it up. There it is. You have the choice. You could send an individual route to the GPS if you wanted, or send the whole file. Again, there's a couple of ways to do it. You can just click on Send GPS, or if you're in the GPS ribbon, Send to GPS. The result's the same. Click on it, and I get a message to say it's been successfully transferred. Bear in mind this device is connected to the computer still as an external disk drive. So if I open up Windows File Explorer and look in the GPS folder, you can see, if you remember from the previous screen, that a new file has appeared. And the way it works is, it doesn't take the file name you gave it at the beginning. It generates its own file name made up of the date and then a sequential number based on what it finds. So I sent a file earlier, I've sent this one, so this one gets the number 2. But it's been transferred to the unit. And you can check that. Unfortunately, I can't show you the screen. But if I disconnect the unit and then fire it up, go into the menu, Route Planner, then I find that my route is now there. The route Alan Muir 1 and Alan Muir 2 are now being offered to me. So the transfer has been successful. It's also possible to bring data back from your GPS. You may have a route you've created on the fly, list of waypoints, or a track log that you've created. You can bring those back using get GPX file from GPS. Remember, this is an external disk drive, so it opens up the sort of standard interface for letting you select files and folders. There's your files. So to I sent, list of waypoints. I created some waypoints on it and they're there. Also, you would find any track logs you have created here. You can just select the one you want and bring it back. So I'll just select that one. Bear in mind that what's happening here is it's only bringing back the file you want, whereas with the serial protocol it's a case of all or nothing. You get the whole contents back and then you've got to filter out the bit you want. This way you can only bring back what you want. Right. This illustrates something interesting. The route I created was a straight route, two routes, one from Swanson Village up to Allenmuir and one from the ski park up to Allenmuir. I also put in a waypoint, which is a local hostelry. What's happened is that in the transfer it's decided that waypoint, although I kept it separate from the route, it had been tagged on at the end of the route. I've noticed this before. If you have waypoints that are not part of a route, it seems to be safer to put them in a separate GPX file and send them that way. Don't know why, but it's a quirk of my device. Something else worth pointing out at this stage is maintaining the contents of your GPS. Yes, you can go in and delete them on the unit, but it's a bit fiddly. So what I tend to do is use the PC. When it's connected, there's nothing to stop me going in and deleting any routes I don't want. And it's easier to do it on the PC than fiddle about in the menus of the device. Another useful tip. Now we look at the serial over USB connection, the Legend type of device. I've connected it up to the PC, so go into Settings, Options, GPS. In this case I want serial protocol over USB and select a device. There is a choice of devices, but very probably the only one you'll ever want will be the Garmin one. Apply, OK. To send a route, just open a previously prepared route. You have the choice, as before, of sending an individual route. Pick a route and send to GPS. You can send them one at a time, or you can send the whole lot. Right clicking, you get the drop down menu to do it, which may be quicker, or you can go to the GPS menu, do send to GPS. You get the message to say the data was successfully saved. And since I can't display the Legend screen, you'll have to take my word for it that the data has been successfully sent and received by the GPS. It works the other way, of course. you can get track logs, get routes, get waypoints. This is an all or nothing. Unlike the mass storage system, where it's a file system you're looking into and you can pick up individual files. If you pick one of these, then you get all the waypoints in the system, you would get all the routes in the system, you would get track logs. In this one it says get GPX file. It hasn't been relabeled, but basically it just pulls everything out of the unit. So if I close that file down so there's no confusion, click on that, it has been successfully imported. And there you are, all the data has been pulled in. Waypoint I had, the 2 routes, and various other bits that were already in the device. I deliberately left the serial devices, the GPS 60 and the Summit device I have, till last. Although they're old technology, they do introduce their own problems. Not so much the device as your PC. Remember I said that modern devices tend not to have a DB9 serial connection. If you have, fine, no problem, you can just plug your connecting lead in and it will probably be COMM1. If you have 2, it'll be, second one will be COMM2, but easy to identify. But if, like me, you don't have a COMM port on your device, you have to use a serial to USB adapter or USB to serial, depending on which way you look at it. I have one, it's plugged in. It will not emulate COMM1 or COMM2. The number it emulates could be almost anything, and you have to know it to get OMN to work. So the trick is to use Windows to tell you what it is. So if you go into the control panel, and there are various ways to get to control panel, this is just one of them, but eventually you want the device manager, and if you look down the list you'll see ports, communication and line printer. Expand the list. COMM1 and LPT when they're on my motherboard, but I don't have the cables connected to the ports on the back of the PC to give me the connections. I'm relying on the USB to serial adapter, and it's telling me that it's COMM8. So that's the number I need for OMN. Close those down. Settings, options, GPS. Now you are, I've selected serial. The device is a serial Garmin device, and I've already set the COMM port to COMM8, but you can step up and down or type in the one you want. So I have COMM8. Apply. OK. Have my GPS connected. Turn it on. I can open up a route pre-prepared. And send it to the GPS. There it tells me successfully transferred, and if I look at my unit it says transfer complete. If you watch the whole series of videos you will notice that the transfer speed for USB over serial was almost instantaneous, whereas the serial one took a few seconds to complete. It's not a very big file, and for those of you that are familiar with V06 and these older devices, you'll probably notice there is quite a time delay in sending the data. Fact of life with the protocols it uses. You can also get the data back. You have the choice of just getting track logs, getting routes, getting waypoints, or getting the whole lot. As with the USB device, this icon's just been left over. It's the same one that's used for GPX file transfer, but basically it gets all the data from the device. So if I close that, click on that, you will notice that it takes longer to do this than it did with the USB one. And it's now telling me it successfully imported the data. Click OK, and there it is. It's a bit of a mess because there's more than just the 2 routes I sent. There's a whole load of other stuff being pulled back out of it, and it all happens to be in the same area. Popular walking ground for me. As I said, doing this pulls back everything in the GPS. More modern units that use the mass storage format allow you to be selective about the data you bring back. I prefer it, which is why I tend to use my eTrex 10 now and favour it. I hope that video proved useful. I'm sorry it's so long and rambling, but it's a subject that is quite complex and has various threads to it. What I might do, what I will do, is try and split it up into sections and provide an index so you can jump to the section you want rather than have to watch the whole video.